what's shaking? Welcome to the Orange Bloods Friday Prediction Show. I'm Jeff Ketchum. That's Anwar Richardson, Jason Sukumel, and Alex Dunlap. And this video brought to you by PrizePicks. They will match up to 100% of your initial deposit. Use the promo code Orange Bloods. We'll get to some thoughts that we have on what this week's PrizePicks entries will look like for Texas and Oklahoma going into the weekend. But for now, we start with what we think the scores will be Saturday when Texas and Oklahoma meet in the Cotton Bowl. Mr. Sukumel, I'll go to you first today. Do you have a score and a final prediction in mind for this?
Yeah, I do. And first off, thank goodness for PrizePicks, man, because I do fantasy football, and I don't have a single player going tonight. Neither does my opponent. So it gives me a good reason to watch NFL football tonight. So thank you, PrizePicks, for making things
so good. Yeah, so good.
Well, it was a few weeks ago, Alex, when I was like, damn, I don't have anybody going. You're like, use PrizePicks. I'm like, oh, hell yeah. It was like a revelation. I'm like, yes, man. So tonight I'll be watching NFL football very intently, even though I have no fantasy football interest. My prediction catch, I wish we knew Dylan Gabriel's status. I'm operating under the assumption that Quinn Ewers is going to play and going to play well. I think Texas is going to run the ball well. I do think if Dylan Gabriel plays, this is still a tricky game for Texas. You can't take it for granted. I'm going to operate under the assumption, I don't agree with it. We talked about it on the podcast. I think he might play, though, man. Just the fact that he was out there Monday throwing the ball around at practice. So Dylan Gabriel plays. I still like Texas pretty easily. I'm going Texas 38-24. I think if Dylan Gabriel doesn't play, I think Texas wins this game in a real blowout, probably by 3 touchdowns or more.
Wow, Mr. Richardson, I saw you had a reaction there. We'll come to you second here on the predictions.
My reaction is that's the exact same score that I wrote down. That was my reaction was, how the hell did he nail this just like that?
I make a confession? I had 34-24, and I kind of talked myself into 38-24. I'm always like looking around for hidden cameras. Like, what the hell? Yes.
Like, just to show, like, it's not like magic or whatever. Like, if you guys can see it, I literally wrote out.
It came into focus.
That's why I literally wrote down 38-24 was my score prediction. I'm kind of with Jason on this thing.
You're exactly with Jason on this thing.
Yeah, well. Good one. Yes, I'm exactly with Jason on this one. I just feel like, I just don't think OU's that good. I think Texas, when they click in, if they bring their A game, I just think they're a better team. I thought about going higher, but I don't think that this is a Texas team that we've seen just continue pouring it on in the fourth quarter. If this is a team that I knew that would pour it on in the fourth quarter, I would say so. But I don't, even with Dylan Gabriel, I think Jason, I talked about, Jason mentioned this on the podcast, but even before the injury, wasn't like he was lighting the world on fire. He still looked pretty average to below average. I think Dylan Gabriel's just an okay quarterback. So, yeah, hopefully I don't have to eat my words. But 38-24, I think Texas kind of controls from start to finish.
Hey, Omar, can you just write my written prediction for Friday, and I'll just take the morning off tomorrow?
Well, it'd be easier if he just makes the picks every week for you.
There you go.
Just like Onward, just email him right before we record this. Alex, do you also have 38-24 as your score?
No, but I mean, I'm right there in the pocket with these guys. I'm gonna say 35-20. I'm gonna say 35-20. I'm not expecting Oklahoma to just look, man, this could be recency bias based on that game versus TCU last week. But as anybody who watched the podcast knows, I came away from that thing very, very underwhelmed with not only Oklahoma in that game, but also just the viability of Brett Venables as far as his personality and everything. To me, it's always seemed like an odd fit. But for the first time of the year, really sitting down and getting to have the time to watch an Oklahoma football game. Sadly, this was the first time this last week, which is my busy work schedule with other stuff. And I was borderline shocked and dismayed. It wasn't what I was expecting to see. And I'm sure we'll talk about it when we get to the prize picks, the degenerate prize picks talk that we're going to probably be the prize picks action that we're going to be getting on this game. But I think that Bijan Robinson is set for a big game here. I know the offensive line is clicking in a way that we haven't even seen during the Steve Sarkisian, Kyle Flood era at Texas, at least coming out of the West Virginia game. They're doing some interesting things that I find very appealing, especially on the perimeters of the defense, where it felt like last week, as Jason mentioned, Oklahoma was very susceptible to getting gashed, and Bijan's the exact kind of guy to do that, especially in this kind of big game, when you look back through history, just whether it's on the Texas side you can picture the Quan Cosbys and the Jordan Shipleys and all the rest of them. And you could picture on the Oklahoma side, the Marquise Browns or who was the dude who jumped over in the end zone to go get Chris Sims. Do you guys remember that? Yeah, just big game-changing plays. I can see those coming out of this game from Bijan Robinson, and I think he's going to be a star in this one. So I think Texas runs away with it. I also somebody made a good point last week in the column is that they're like, man, why are you predicting Sarkisian to win this game by like 4 points or whatever? He never wins these close games. So, I mean, if I think Texas is going to win, it's probably going to be a game where Sarkisian wins big. So that's the way I'm going to go, 35-20.
I am zigging while all of you guys zag a little bit. I think there's two predictions you make for this game. The one where Dylan Gabriel doesn't play, and I think Texas wins that game pretty handedly if it looks like that. I tend to think that he will play. I think that and I think that becomes a bit problematic for a Texas defense that struggles with guys with his type of skill set. I think Texas is going to win this game, but I think it's going to be a bit of a barn burner. I don't completely trust Texas. I don't completely trust Oklahoma. What it feels like to me is that this game is going to end up being a 50-50 type affair. What would this game look like?
50-50?
No, a 50-50 type game. Okay. And that when we go to the fourth quarter, it's either tied or the winner will still be in doubt. So that means I wondered what we would think of this game if OU had last week off and Texas had just beaten West Virginia. What would we still think about Oklahoma from the Kansas State game? Because it feels like the conversations changed a little bit post-Texas Tech when suddenly Texas fans were getting on me because I wouldn't alter my 8-4 prediction. Like, swear the fans are so bipolar on this team. A week ago, they were worried that Texas would have a hard time being bowl eligible. And 1 week later, it feels like Texas might blow Oklahoma out. I'm going to not only say that this game is going to be close, I think it's going to be an overtime affair. And I'm going to take Texas winning 40-37 in overtime. That's my prediction.
That would definitely – you bucked a lot of trends there, Catch.
I know. I zagged or zigged when everybody else would either zig or zag. I can't remember. As it relates to prize picks, I don't know when. It may be that the entries are out on Friday as we're revealing our predictions here on the channel, or if it'll be as late as Saturday. I feel like we all probably like the more with Bijan. Like, what do we think the number for Bijan is going to be? They're going to probably have it right on his average, so maybe like 100-ish yards.
It'll be I think that because they put it last week at a 102.5 rushing and receiving, didn't they? Or was that just rushing?
I think it was a little higher for rushing and receiving.
Okay. Well, my thought was they always put the entry in for Roschon Johnson at between 40 and 50 yards a game. And I know what that, like, I'm somebody who makes projections for this kinds of stuff. Like, I do this for a job. I know what they're doing. They're taking that out of the whole kitty. And I feel like in this game, you're not going to want to take that much away from Bijan Robinson in this game. I don't feel like it being I don't think that this is going to be the kind of game where we could just take the baseline averages for over the course of the season and just drop them right in. Just due to the nature of how the Texas offense, I think is going to interact with this Oklahoma defense. I think that Bijan's going to have some of the big take it to the house type of runs. So I think if they put the entry at something, because there'll be a rush yards one, there'll be a rushing plus receiving one. There's usually a fantasy score one.
The fantasy score will be an interesting one to see.
Right. But I do think, for the rushing plus receiving, if you can get it somewhere like 104.5 to 110.5 or something like that, just go over. Just go over. If you think Texas is going to win and it's going to be a good game for Texas, because I feel like if Texas does win in this game, it's going to be on the back of Bijan Robinson. But we did talk about some of the other stuff, and I'd be interested in what you guys think about Worthy kind of coming out of his shell a little bit last week. When we talk about shells, the two deep shells, the two safeties over the top. We have some injuries here on the Oklahoma side to deal with, and you figure that clearly the person who that helps the most is your lid lifter on offense, and that's going to be Xavier Worthy. What do you guys think it'll be? Do you think they'll put his more or less at 4.5 catches?
Probably more with viewers expected to play, and after the coverage,
they've kept him between 4 and 5 the whole season.
I know it feels like that's where it's been, and sometimes it's been 4 even for a long time.
If it's 4.5, I would pound the more on that.
Yeah, probably. Just because it just feels like this is the shot. I mean, doesn't it make all the sense in the world that you would say, all right, well, Texas has Quinn Ewers back. Let's get going back to Worthy. He had the great connection with him before he got hurt in that first 5 quarters, and then there's the other thing with the safeties. I mean, that's a big deal, dude. Jason talked a lot about it earlier, about the communication, the lack of communication and the focus they've had to place there. It's a tough turnaround to get that done the week before the Cotton Bowl. It's loud there, man. So I do think that when we're talking about the lid lifter on offense, we have been very, very, very bullish on Jordan Whittington's more as far as his receptions generally.
And
I think this week I'm kind of
last week, didn't he catch? Because he had
3 or 4,
a lot of catches early.
I thought he pushed. Did he not push? I thought he pushed. I thought he didn't win, but I think he pushed.
I don't remember, but I remember he got a lot of touches early, and then we're like, "Come on, man! I mean, where are these other?" You need one more, and he couldn't get it. But
well, it's made sense to
I thought he had 3 catches
Whittington for the passing volume, just because he's he plays 86% of snaps, and he plays almost every snap, right? But I think for this one, it's just technically from a football perspective, and just from a narrative street perspective. Quinn comes back, rekindles the connection with Xavier Worthy. The safeties are out. He's your lid lifter. To me, just if this thing's sitting at 4.5 or 5, they're not going to take it to 5.5. I don't think.
Hey, Anwar, my favorite projected, my number one line this week will be whatever they put for receiving yards for Xavier Worthy. I'm taking the more. So they've got Xavier's averaging 66 yards per game. Before I looked it up, I thought in my head, what would be the number that I think PrizePicks might?
73.5 is the first thing I thought.
I had 75.5 in my head, which is almost 10 yards more than he averages. And I'm still hitting the more as hard as I can hit this week. Of all of the guys on the field, the guy that I think goes highest above what his normal average has been this season is going to be Xavier Worthy.
I would agree. My only, if I'm playing devil's advocate, there's a chance this game is a blowout. We probably, if Texas is up by 14 points in the fourth quarter and sitting on the ball, which, everybody says, hey, all gas, no brakes. They better not sit on the ball. Sark hopefully has learned his lesson. But, Texas is the favorite team. They may not be throwing the ball as much in the fourth quarter if they're leading. So
I think it was 100 at halftime.
Wouldn't shock me. Look what he did last year against Oklahoma. So
he got 80 on one play. So yes.
It's always good to nail those entries by half, Catch. You can just sit back and enjoy the rest of that game, right?
It absolutely does. And
hey, Catch, I got a sneaky one for you.
Okay.
I don't know what they'll do for fantasy points, but whatever they do for fantasy points from Roschon Johnson, I will take the more on. And here's
I've been
why.
riding that train on War, and it's burned me a couple times.
Yeah.
Well, it's burned you. But here's why I think the payoff has been. What has Roshan Johnson done every single time he's been in the Wildcat? Run, right? Isn't this the game where Roshan Johnson?
I don't believe it.
Isn't this this is the game?
It should be.
This is the game. This is what they've been saving it for. Such a time as this. If you start, you're like, just run it, and now all of a sudden, like, oh, Roshan's in. Clearly, this is going to be a run, and then Roshan throws the TD.
It's like a 40-yard touchdown pass. Yeah.
And now you killed it on the fantasy points, whatever it is. It's going to be something low.
I'll give you one that's going to
excuse me, because I've been getting burned on his rushing yards, but I do like the fantasy play. That's a good point. Yeah.
I was going to bring up remember when against Alabama when the Quinn Ewers rushing yards number, the more or less on that was, I think it was like a minus 9.5. And Jason, I think you played the more on that because he got hurt and didn't get sacked in the game.
No, I had his passing yards, and he had whatever 1,000 in the first quarter, but he still missed it. So.
I remember the rushing yards prior to the Alabama game because it was a negative number. I wonder
more Quinn Ewers passing yards, and he was well on his way to shattering that in the second quarter, and then he goes out. And I'm like, damn.
Well, we did the modcast on Thursday where we talked about Dylan Gabriel and how if he plays, they may not look to have him run the ball. That he may just be on a mental don't do that. Mm-hmm. And I think Quinn, who already doesn't look to run, I think we learned that in just the first 5 quarters of him playing, that if he can throw it, that's what he's going to look to do. I would think maybe to take, if they set the number at 5 for Quinn Ewers rushing yards, I'm not sure. That's not my favorite line. It's not one that I would like look to take advantage of, but I think it will potentially be one of the more interesting numbers will be Quinn Ewers' rushing numbers in this game. Whatever they set that line at, I think I'm instinctively would want to take the less on that.
OU's run defense is so bad against quarterback runs. Let me say this.
But he doesn't want to run.
But what about Dylan Gabriel's less rushing yards? Because he's not.
Yeah.
I mean that.
Well, here's what I was going to say is this about Gabriel, but this is just like an old school. You know, when you're talking these more or less, just something where you can get like the backdoor way to it. They can get the trapdoor stuff because Theo Weiss. It looks like he's questionable, right? Eric Gray's questionable.
I think Gray's going to play.
Okay, well, he's going to play, but he's coming off injury. And Gabriel's coming off injury. For all those guys, man, when I look at their entries, what I'll just say is, you know, is this number that PrizePicks is putting up, is this baking in the chance of a re-aggravation? This guy, you know, this guy having to leave the game at half. And if it doesn't look like it is, if it looks like it's just a regular one, I'm going to go under on all those guys because I'm going to have that one little small trapdoor edge. And even if they don't get hurt and leave the game, who's to say they're going to be operating at the 100% that's being projected there for whatever the entry is projecting.
Now, I did the same thing at Texas Tech when Xavier Worthy was banged up in the first half. He played through it. I played the less on the second half, and just my luck, he didn't play at all the second half, so the pick got canceled. But the same logic applies, Alex. If a guy's kind of playing on an injury or tweaks something in the first half, like, hey, there's a good chance maybe the less hits in the second half.
Last thing I wanted to talk about before we wrap this up, Marvin Mims. He's averaging 87.5 yards per game. Let's just say PrizePicks establishes a number right in line with his season average at 87.5 yards. What kind of game do we think this Texas secondary has against Mims? Is it really hard to call because of the Gabriel thing? Or if I tell you that Gabriel's going to play, does that do anything at all with regards to how big of a game we think Mims might have?
I think it has a lot more to do with if Weiss is going to play.
Yeah.
Right? Or just the law of the conservation of targets. So there's that to consider. There's Gabriel to consider. But I think I'm just kind of like, I have two things weighing on my mind when I think about that proposition, the first thing I think of is, well, who else are they going to throw it to if there is no, if there is no Weiss and Gabriel is out there, or if Weiss is operating at less than 100%? Then on the other side, I'm thinking, well, you got a guy like probably, I would imagine he'll be seeing more of Ryan Watts because Watts is the one who has the length, and he's the one who's playing, he's playing 95% of the snaps, whereas they are mixing in Jameer Johnson some with Deshaun Jameson. I think that's probably what we're going to see. And we saw last week, man, those guys were being very disruptive, attacking the football. I don't know if that's going to continue. So I'm torn on that one. I don't have a good lean one way or the other with him. I don't really feel like I have too much edge if it comes out at like an 87.5 or 86.5 or something like that.
I would just warn everybody that I've bet the more with Marvin, and not so much the last couple of weeks of the season, because I eventually lost so much on Marvin Mims that I just stopped putting my more or less entries focused on him. But I'm looking at his numbers and I'm like, man, they must have hit him all in the last 3 weeks. How's he averaging almost 90 yards per game? I swear I kept hitting more for Marvin Mims and he wasn't coming close to the more. Maybe stay away from OU guys this week to a certain degree. In terms of looking for the entries that have the most obvious street appeal, they will be, I think, harder to put your thumb on. Anybody disagree with that?
No.
All right. Well, look, we are up against it clockwise. Jason literally has somewhere he has to go. So, PrizePicks, we're just waiting. Give us our Texas OU entries. We'll be all over them as a staff. Look forward to wrapping them up or talking about
those and a bunch of others.
They already got Jalen Daniels for KU out there already. I was already scoping that one out. For myself, Alex, Jason, Onward, thanks for watching our Friday prediction show. Don't forget, tomorrow, Saturday, the postgame show. Onward, I don't know. I haven't talked it over with Jason yet to see what his availability will be.
I'll be around.
Up to, there we go. So the three of us will all be involved in the postgame show tomorrow. Monday Overreactions. Do us a solid. Like this video. Hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe to the channel. We're creeping up towards 14,000. Get notifications. Tell friends. Do all that stuff. For the entire OB team, though, we thank you for watching. You guys be safe going to Dallas this weekend. We'll talk to you soon. Later.